Here we go. Episode 7. Welcome back, guys. Seamus, great call this week. 1984, Van Halen. I think you or Jack said that we've been doing a lot of soft rock recently, so it definitely feels good to change the pace. And
Yeah.
what an album to do that with. I mean, where do we begin?
See my
The
shirt?
beginning.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
right there.
Totally ready for this.
Dude, I
Yeah,
love the Beatles, man. That's great.
yeah. No, I've been looking forward to this one, obviously. I I'm so interested to hear what you guys say. After Nigel just shat on Jack and Chicago last week, I'm a little nervous, but no, my only fear is that I've talked about it so much in the last 3 days that you guys don't like it anymore. I've probably listened to it like at least 6 times since we picked it Thursday night, Friday
Oh, I've
morning.
listened to it a lot. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
I've
I
done my
and I
homework.
accidentally, yeah, I accidentally had it on like repeat, and it was a mistake that I didn't really feel like I needed to change.
Not at all.
Hmm.
So who's starting off?
I'd like to see what you guys have to say about it first, and what you have to say about the band and how much you know about Van Halen.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I can start
Go.
off since I ended
Yeah.
last week.
Sure.
All right, 1984. Um,
George
you already know where I'm going with this. Great,
Yeah.
great book. I listened to the audio book actually. The vocals were super intense. The George Orwell on guitar was just really telling how the future's going to be. It was like it was like he could literally see into the future and tell us exactly what's going to happen. But
Couldn't
but
agree more.
actually, 1984, the song. I mean, you guys know I have a bias towards the 80s and synths, and I really like the intro because it's super synthy. It's got some arpeggiation going on. It's got these pads and stabs and like a synth bass, and I feel like it's a great introduction to the album, but it's also kind of like if you want to listen to a uh, what is it like a the epitome or a paramore of 80s music, this is like the perfect way to start off because it's just a bunch of synths
Yeah.
doing weird synth stuff, and it's just like this welcome to the 80s essentially. um I this is a great album. This is this is far from we won't even talk, the album that will not be named or whatever. We'll leave that alone. But I love this album. Jump is an awesome song. I think they had 3 singles off this, or 4. Jump, Panama, yeah, Hot for Teacher, and I'll Wait. They're all highlighted there. My favorite song is Hot for Teacher. That song rocks. I love the double kick starting off. And the Jump is probably my second favorite song, I would say. They all have some like weird music videos. I don't know if you guys looked at the music videos, but um
I've seen
I
them.
mean they're typical 80s music videos. They're not that weird. I guess maybe Hot for Teacher's a little weird. But
Yeah, yeah, that one definitely.
I think Top for Jimmy had a really awesome guitar solo that I enjoyed.
Top Jimmy.
Yeah. What did I say?
I'm top for
You
Jimmy.
said top for Jimmy.
See, I'm thinking Hot for Teacher. Yeah. Top Jimmy.
Easy mix up.
And what was I gonna say? I don't know. I thought the album was great. I listened to it and it repeated the first time I listened to it, and I was like, I don't care. I'm just gonna let it play through again.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
exactly.
because all of the songs are like pretty short and digestible. Um, a song doesn't need to be short to be great, but if it's gonna go, it needs to fucking go. Um,
It needs to validate its length. Is that what you mean?
exactly. I think which song is it? I think is it
Drop
Panama
Dead
that has
Legs.
the change up. One of them has a pretty good change up where it goes from like it's in the middle of a guitar solo and then like everything drops out except the guitars and the drums. I forget which song it is.
Oh, huh. Everything goes except.
I don't know. Whatever it is.
Was that Eddie?
Yeah, I think that is in Panama. Yeah.
I actually got him. Yeah.
Dan, you're right. Yeah. It's Panama. It's
Yeah.
Panama.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought.
It's like that
Exactly.
little breakdown.
Yeah.
That is a transition. That is a change up that was just executed perfectly. And I don't want to harp too much on last week, but it's like you got to do what
I knew
the
that's
song
where you're going with
needs,
that.
all right, you can't tell the music what to do. You have to let the music tell you what to do. And that transition felt so good because that's what the song needed. Instead of like, oh, I know I can add a change up here because I've played enough bars and the chord progression can do this. Like, no, the song wanted what it wanted, and Van Halen delivered. That's all I gotta say. It's a great album.
Rock on.
Yeah, sweet review. Love that, Nigel.
Yeah, just comparing to last week too, just because you brought it up, it's like I feel like last week was like a loss, and like we're looking at the schedule and we just needed a really easy opponent.
Yeah.
And we're like, you know what, dude?
ECW.
And we're going again in 3 days, which is even better because
Yeah.
I just want to get back at it. And
Yeah, we
forget
had
about that
a
one.
Monday night game and then a Thursday night game, and then we had a quick
Yeah.
turnaround, dude.
Yeah, and we needed it just to cleanse the palate, you know. No, there was I didn't feel as harsh about last week's album as you did, but I feel like you were kind of comparing it to that, right? Like when you, like I knew you were going there when you said like it's like a kind of a change that actually catches your ear and sounds well timed with the music and everything. Like that's kind of, you did a better job last week putting it into words than I did, but it just felt like everything was kind of like scripted to be experimental, which is cool. But like, you know, whereas this, I feel like it's very much, I mean, everything's on brand for them, I would say. And part of their iconic sound, probably their most iconic sounding album, I would say. And
Yeah.
you talked
I
about
mean,
it a lot,
more-
just like capturing that 80s sound.
Yeah, I would say there's more synth than usual, but overall, yeah, very Van Halen.
True. But I think it's the one that's like the most distinct sounding, I guess. Even though the synth was like the 80s was raw with the synth. This one still incorporates Eddie's sick playing. And some cool drumming, which you alluded to, and I'll talk a little bit more about later. But yeah, and about the synth, I was gonna say about the synth too, right? Like I was reading in the Wikipedia that Eddie had actually kind of experimented with the idea for Jump earlier, but it kind of got shelved because David Lee Roth wasn't a huge fan of the synth. He wanted to keep it like the traditional hard rock sound. And I thought that was interesting because I immediately thought of Rush in the documentary Beyond the Lighted Stage. Geddy Lee talks a lot about like how he was the one who was most pressing the introduction of the synth in their music, and he wanted to incorporate it even more than they let him in the 80s. I think they went down that road more in the 90s, but I can't say I've spent a ton of time listening to 90s Rush, you know.
No.
Yeah.
I know like
Most people
Subdivision.
have
They had a lot of synth there, but
yeah.
I mean,
not too much
synth
beforehand.
is
No.
synth is like it's like the ultimate like creative tool for someone with kind of like a producer's mindset. And I mean you can get that from Geddy Lee and Eddie Van Halen because they did a lot of the writing. But like it's the way you use it is completely different in every song. You can fit it in anywhere, whether you want a bass or a pad, or like there's synthesized strings in 1984 or a lead. Like it's just super versatile. So I'm glad they fit it in because it sounds fucking awesome.
Damn,
Dan Ricky.
I've never thought of the synth like that, or I don't know. I'll have to listen to that back.
I could see you not being a big synth guy.
Yeah, I could definitely do
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I can go. I didn't do any research or Wikipediaing. I just went for the raw listen. I think we all know, you know, it's a great popular album. So to kind of, I guess, go away from what you guys were saying right there. I actually do love the synth, and I love the intro. I think it should be a prerequisite to play the song 1984 every single time Jump comes on. I kept imagining
Yeah.
it happening
Yeah.
live, which would be amazing. I
Sick.
actually haven't seen any live shows, but I think it'd be kind of similar to the end of Slipknot, where everyone just kind of knows what's coming, and then it's you blow your
And then it hits you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. That's pretty
No,
incredible.
that's a cool point. I kind of like, though, interesting point. This is way less important in vinyl than it is when you go to Spotify or that kind of medium when songs are split. I think it's actually kind of cool that I should say I appreciate that they broke those into two different ones, because sometimes, like, it helps Jump's case on a playlist a lot better, or like on aux a lot better, if you don't have that minute
Mhm.
intro. But to your guys' point, the minute intro is cool, and it just fits in really well with this album, and it's super prog rock ish too, which is kind of the other. Not that I really heard this and thought like, oh, Rush, but that's a second way in which I kind of compare this to some stuff that Rush does.
Yeah. I think it's a great way to balance like the consumability of the song, but also have it be interesting. You know what I mean? Because you could have combined 1984 and Jump because they flow right into each other so seamlessly, and they're meant to do that. But I think it was smart to be able to split them up because maybe someone doesn't like synths, maybe they don't like 1984, but Jump is a completely different standalone song than the intro song is.
Not 1984 works too well to establish the album. Then Jump
Yeah.
rocks
Yeah,
your
yeah.
socks off.
Yeah.
I'm sure too. I think the only other point I had, I feel like I'm usually the one kind of shooting down the popular songs and calling them overrated, but for me, the Jump in Panama, I think fully deserved. I'm not calling anything in here overrated, but MVP, I'd probably go Drop Dead Legs, and probably my favorite
My
song.
guy.
Yeah.
My guy.
Yeah.
Oh, hey Jack.
Welcome,
Yeah.
welcome, Jack. Snuck in here.
Yeah.
Speaking my language with the Drop Dead Legs, man. Love that
Yeah,
song.
but
Yeah.
that being said, and like kind of everything we've talked about, for me, it's a really top heavy album, right? Like, look at that side one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we talked about everything except for Top Jimmy, but side two is, a little meh for me, but obviously overall great album.
Yeah, if you switched Hot for Teacher and Top Jimmy, I wouldn't.
It would
listen
be
to side
stacked.
two. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be untouchable.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I gotta say, I'm kind of a big I'll Wait guy, but
Oh, it's good. I like it too.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
yeah.
Very 80s.
It reminds me of like an 80s high school movie, kind of
Yep.
like,
Yep.
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
You said that about the guitar solo, which I thought was just so spot on and hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I may have described it as like an 80s movie where like the protagonist guy character is like hooking up with the school hot girl, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the car,
You finally got it.
makeout point. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
spot
that's
on.
yeah.
What have I missed?
Not much.
Okay.
Just me and
Yeah, I
Nigel.
think. Yeah. Just
Nigel,
us.
I'm curious what are Nigel's thoughts. I know Inky's thoughts.
I had nothing but praise. I think it's a great album.
Nice.
I don't think there's a bad song in the album at all. I said Hot for Teacher is my my favorite song. We did a little bit of comparison to the last week's album, but we won't. You'll
Yeah,
have
we
to
don't
watch
get
it.
that. That's fine.
Last week's album.
I'm glad you got that out of the way before I got here.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Hot for Teacher. Honestly, this shit just reminds me of just like Noel Franzik a lot.
He just followed us on Instagram today. I was gonna bring that up.
Dude, I
Time
gotta
Van Halen episode. It's like he knew.
I gotta check out I haven't seen any of the Instagram stuff. You guys keep talking about it. I need to see it all.
It's
I'll take
there
a look
to
after
be
this. What's up?
I said it's there to be seen.
It is. I know. I need to go look at it all. I keep hearing praise, but yeah, no, good stuff. Continue on.
No, I mean, you're getting into it. You just
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
All I blasted this the second I woke up yesterday morning all the way through, and I was
That
like, oh,
rocks,
shit, it's
yeah.
done already. Like it's such a quick album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Kind of like
perfect.
30 something minutes.
what Zeppelin, honestly, all the Zeppelin numbered, except for
There
like
it is again.
4, they're pretty short. And what?
into the outdoor.
Yeah,
Let's talk
I
about
was
it.
literally
Not
just
yet, not yet.
I just rewatched the 5th episode, and we were joking about how every episode we talk about
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin.
Yeah,
It's true.
we have a type. But it's the same concept. That's just like such a quick album, and every single second is like super good, and it's just like a fun album you can just like blast through. Like when you're like trying to pick albums to put on at like a party, and no one wants to put on the fucking like 2-hour Yes album that's 6 discs. No, you're gonna put on the 30-minute Van Halen. Everyone's gonna love it, and
Play the whole thing through.
you play the whole thing through, and every song is just like rocking. And I imagine like in the 80s when that was your only choice, when you didn't even have Spotify, like this was the go-to, and it still is.
Yeah.
Like
Dude,
I
great
love the
point.
album.
Yeah.
It's so listenable, it's so fun. Like it's the song "Working for the Weekend" by Loverboy. Like that song is trying to encapsulate what this album is. Like this is the like freedom from like the monotonous of the week, and you just like you put this on Friday at 5 p.m. and this is like the album. Like this is like the weekend mode and
Happy place.
opinion.
Dude, so
It's a happy place.
it's so funny you say that, because Inky, I don't know if you would remember this, but in college at some point, it was like a Thursday afternoon, and like that, I didn't have class on Friday, so this was like the end of my week, and I stacked my Thursday so that I got a Friday off. So I'm sitting in like my 4th hour-and-a-half long class. It's like 4 p.m. Not getting out for another till 5:30, and just like wasn't feeling it. Just wanted to get done, and then like 3 minutes into class, like as soon as we get into the lesson plan, the fire alarm goes off. And I think I said this to Inky, but I was like, in my head, it was like almost like The Office or something. And I just pan to the camera and smile. And then the next shot is just me ripping Bong in my house. Minutes later.
And it's just the Sins for Jump going on in the back.
And it's just Jump plays when it comes to my apartment. So that's, to Jack's point, that's what this album, like, that's the, like, I don't even know why you'd ever do coke. You could just listen to this album.
Yeah, this is it.
Same effect.
This is sufficient.
It's a perfect substitute.
So I think my favorites, I think the most fun song is Panama. It's just like the most hype.
For sure.
I think Jump is the best in my opinion. Like the synth is just out of this world. Like
Which
like
one?
you guys were talking to when I hopped on, like the intro to Jump is just awesome. And like that solo and it's just so good. I love Jump. It's such a beautiful song. But Drop Dead Legs, I remember there's one scene in Family Guy in Road to the Multiverse, great episode, when Meg is hot in this
Season 8, episode 1 or 2, I think.
You're right.
I sound like Carl from Family Guy.
I know, right? But that's the first time I heard this song. It's like Meg is like walking down the street and it's just like Drop Dead Legs and it's hilarious. And
it's a hot Meg.
It's a hot Meg.
Yeah, better context.
So funny. And Hot for Teacher, such a fun song. When he's like, I dropped my pencil or whatever. Or got my pencil. Like that is such a funny line.
Give me something to write on.
Yeah.
That is like peak David Lee Roth.
Yep. It's just too good, man.
Have you sorry to cut you off, but just on David Lee Roth, have you guys ever heard any isolated vocal tracks of his?
No.
Highly recommend. It's so funny.
Okay.
Really?
Okay.
He's expressive as hell.
I love that. I guess least favorite, if I had to pick, would probably be like Girl Gone Bad. It just kind of sounds like what you picture Van Halen sounds like, and like what the 80s sounds like, and it doesn't really have any depth to it. I just kind of get lost. I tune out when I listen to it.
It sounds like what AI would make if you told it to make a Van Halen song.
That's a good way of putting it. Very topical. I completely agree. But yeah, all in all, fun album, obvious, like top tier for me. Just like, one of those that like got me into like rock and roll. This thing is just such a, through and through, 30 minutes of fun.
Well said.
Yeah, that's awesome. Dan, you want to go next?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my knowledge of Van Halen is mostly like all the David Lee Roth era, everything from Van Halen 1 up through 1984. And I think they kind of just have continuously improved, and this album is like their magnum opus, in my opinion. Might be like the best one they've ever made. Like pound for pound, this album is absolutely perfect. Like I don't know, all the songs are just great. I listened to it more like years ago, but for like coming back to it and listening to the whole thing flies by just because you listen to the whole thing, you're jamming. It's
Yep.
Hell yeah.
sick album. Yeah, agreed. Drop Dead Legs is definitely the best song in the album.
Love
That's
it.
the song you usually keep coming back and listening to. And I totally agree with Inky's point. Like normally you can point to some overrated song or something that sticks out as overplayed or overheard, but I don't think Jump or Panama feel overplayed at all. I expect it to be like, oh yeah, I've heard these songs a million times, but you're just gonna listen to it and you're gonna jam to it,
Right on.
like no matter what.
Yeah.
On that point, I was thinking about this earlier today. Like, would you guys, again, your opinion, does Van Halen have a song, like a radio song, that is like cliche of them, like overplayed? The comparison being like a lot of people feel that way about Sweet Home Alabama
Mhm.
and Hotel California.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way about any Van Halen song?
I'm looking at their top 10 on Spotify, and
If you
no, not my opinion.
Yeah.
if you made me pick, maybe Running with the Devil. But like I really
Yeah,
like
maybe.
that song.
Good call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah, that's
intro
like
is
the
so
one.
awesome.
I'm a huge.
It is.
That's how the album starts. I'm pretty sure that's how the first
Yeah.
album starts. So we've talked about it with
Into
Zeppelin.
Eruption.
Yeah, wild. And we've talked
Wow.
about it with Zeppelin. I think we have like how when you drop the needle on Led Zeppelin 1, your first impression of them is like, wow, what is this?
Mhm.
And now Led Zeppelin also, like that sound, like not just the band, but the sound of that music was pretty eye-opening. But with Van Halen 1, I think it starts with Running with the Devil.
Bathrooms?
And
Oh, sorry.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, yeah, so that right for Zeppelin being the first
For
thing you
Ze-
hear,
yeah,
and
right,
like
right.
Running with the Devil being the first thing you hear. I'm going to fact check this because otherwise this whole point is
No,
useless.
I,
But
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you're right. I'm
That's
pretty
kind of
sure.
what I was
It
thinking.
is. Running with the Devil, Eruption. You really got me. Ain't talking about love.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm the
read 'em
hot
all.
4 in a
one.
row, 4 bangers. Like the
And
first
then
album's really
Jamie's
good.
crying.
Dude,
Oh,
It's so good. The
we
first
should
album's
roll right
really
into
good.
episode 8.
I mean, if you guys, yeah, if you guys want to do Van Halen 1 next, like in 20 minutes, I'm down. Yeah, but what else you got, Dan?
Yeah, I guess just like one other thing to point to, I guess for like all the band members playing on this, like David Lee Roth, I kind of point to is like such an expressive vocalist. Like I think he really commands like every song. Like he's just kind of got a voice that everybody recognizes, and it kind of fits that like '80s glam rocky kind of vibe. But for this album in particular, Eddie Van Halen playing both the guitars and the keyboards. Like man's playing all these synths, and the
Yeah.
synths dominate this album,
yes,
and the
do.
guitar dominates this album, and that's just all Eddie Van Halen. Like as much as David Lee
So
Roth is the
good.
front man of Van Halen, this is Eddie Van Halen's baby. This album, it has to be.
Love that.
Good way to
Yeah.
put it. Yeah.
But he definitely gets an MVP. Like he created this like whole album, like the style,
Mhm.
everything about it. Probably
I was just
roots
gonna
from
say, like, there are some bands where the MVP is just always gonna be the same guy. Like Eddie Van Halen is Van Halen, the band. He just
Mhm.
does so much for it. And honestly, like he was like a death. I don't know if you guys have a musician like this, but he was a death that like actually like hurt. You know what I mean? Like when Tom Petty died, it was like, like damn, like that's a rock legend. I'll listen to, Last Dance with Mary Jane tonight and and then but like
Pour out a
Do
beer.
it justice, man.
but like I said, like Eddie's death was like the same way Neil Peart's was. I was just like, dude, like that's one of my favorite musicians. One of my
Yeah.
one of
That
those
was
people
real
that's like your
sad when Neil
favorite.
died.
Yeah.
You're never gonna see him either, which is
That's a musician Mount Rushmore right there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
that's
one
like
of
you could
those.
easily
Oh,
argue
that's a
two of
good
those.
question. Who is your
Yeah.
music Mount Rushmore?
Let's
That is
answer
on-
that. Let's answer that next week.
Okay,
That
That's a
could
good one.
that could be an episode in its own, dude.
yeah,
For sure.
Yeah.
rock legends. One of
Well-
each, like, vocalist, guitarist, drummer,
Yeah.
bassist.
Bassist.
Create your fantasy team, your fantasy band.
Yeah,
Your
fantasy.
fantasy band? Oh my goodness.
I've thought about that before. But then you just you start picking your favorite musicians, but you're like, actually these two would mesh
Wait, can I-
better. You know?
Yeah,
Let's
Dude,
put
it's like-
Kanye up
get
there
really
5
into it.
times.
Was it when the band and the Dead played together? It was, or no, yeah, it was the band and the Dead played once together, and it was garbage. They were all just so drunk and high, they just couldn't mix, and it was like the worst show ever. So you got to think about some things. I don't know how you
Yeah.
think about that, but one side was hammered, one side was tripping sack.
That's fucking hilarious.
Anyways, what were we
That sounds
talking
like a
about?
good idea.
Yeah, sounds fun.
Yeah. I don't know, but I'll hop in real quick. When I was listening to Hot for Teacher, dude, all I could think about was Joe. Like
Joe and
I
like
don't-
Miss Riley.
Oh my fucking god, bro.
no. I don't know if any of you had biology with me. but
Oh
I
yeah,
in-
what was her name?
Miss Sheehan.
Miss
Miss
Sheehan.
Sheehan. Yeah, I had bio with her. Oh shit. That
Yeah, dude, I completely forgot about that.
He loved her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's all I could think about when I played this song. But it's such a good song. It's so
We should
fun.
hit up Joe so you get him in on an episode.
Perfect
Yeah, I
idea.
should.
I've
Bring
talked to him
him
a little
for
bit
Asia.
recently too.
I
Ooh.
couldn't tell you last time I talked to him. Yeah, we should get him on. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I can try to make that happen. I'll even
Uh,
ask him what album he wants to talk about, hoping
Yeah.
that he doesn't pick something way too far out there. But
Yeah.
because I might veto that.
Yeah. Yeah, Nige. That's funny.
Yeah, I love that song. It's great.
And
I
you got
agree
anything
that
else?
I was just gonna say I agree that Girls Gone Bad is probably it's not a bad song,
Weak
but it's
link.
probably the weakest song
Yeah.
on the album.
Yeah.
You think that instead of House of Pain?
Yeah.
Probably go House of Pain, Seamus.
Honestly, for me, I'd struggle to distinguish them in my brain, so I could go either one.
Differentiate, yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah, it's not a great
It's not a great
sign
sign.
for
Yeah.
songs. Yeah.
Like if it ended at I'll Wait, it would be too short of an album. But I don't know. They could have ended a little stronger. It'd be my only critique. But again, that's I'm searching for something.
yeah.
True. A good ending on an album, I think, is important. I thought like the Hall Notes one. Every time I look at you. Also, Boston, Let Me Take You Home Tonight kind of has like an outro that's fit for an outro to the album. Where like Drop Dead Legs
Yeah.
could have been the last song because it does that guitar solo outro. So that would have been kind of cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would have been interesting if they did kind of the opposite of what they did with the intro, is have like an outro song and then an outro like instrumental.
That would have been cool.
It's a great example of like a fantastic finale to an album is Led Zeppelin 2.
I knew you were gonna say.
Bring It On Home. Bring It On Home is like
That
the
is a
greatest
great
ending to
song.
an album ever.
Dude, what a band that is. How have we not done the Zeppelin album?
Yeah. Well, maybe next. Okay, no, we got a great album next week, but maybe the week
Mad
after.
Villain.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
Mount Rushmore the following week.
Yeah. Yes.
It sounds good.
We can do
I
it.
just have to record 3 times a week.
We could do an extended episode of like a Zeppelin album plus Rushmore. I think that'd be like a hard hitter.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Something.
Dan, you have anything else to add?
No, not really.
Nikki, how are we
Okay,
on
cool.
time? Because you might just want to send another link real quick.
It looks like we're at 30 minutes.
We got 10 minutes.
Ah,
left.
it just hit. All right. Well, the conversation at the end probably won't take too long. So obviously super excited to listen to this one. I would say it's the first album that we've discussed that's like really up my alley in terms of like the type of rock that I like to listen to.
Mhm.
The Van Halen, Skinner, Rush, Police, Boston. So yeah, I had no problem listening to this. Repeat, looking at the Wikipedia and stuff. one of the things I was going to mention, I think Alex Van Halen is a really underrated drummer.
Yeah, he is.
And Nigel, you could speak more to like his the technical reasons behind that. And I'm not going to say again, I can't speak to like drumming skill sets too much, so I'm not going to say he's underrated as much as I would just say I really like his sound, and I'd never hear anybody talk about him.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, he's outshined by his brother because I
Yeah.
mean he's a good drummer. He's a great drummer, but Eddie Van Halen is better at the guitar than he is at drums.
Eddie Van Halen's Eddie Van Halen. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Pretty
So
large
he does get
shadow.
outshined.
Yeah,
But definitely a great
100%.
drummer.
And like again, like on Eddie, like rest in peace to a legend. And I've heard like really good stories about him because you hear some musicians are just kind of assholes. I think like Sting might be someone that's up in that category, at least to his bandmates. I don't know what he was like to the crowd, but to the fans. But I think I've heard really good things about Eddie. And when I was talking about like musicians whose like death impacted me, with him and Neil Peart probably being the two biggest ones, maybe the two only ones. Um, and I was thinking about it today, like actually not today. I thought about this a lot. Like, who's that next? Like, who's a musician that I listen to now who's like either still making music or still touring that I feel that same way about, which is kind of interesting. This one just came to mind. I mean, Bobby from Bob
Mhm.
Weir.
Mhm.
I was gonna say Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains is one of those guys for me. And I was just listening to a Jerry Cantrell interview today, and he was telling Eddie Van Halen's story that I posted on Instagram, just about how like I don't know if Alice in Chains opened for them or whatever, or if he was just hanging out with Eddie in Hollywood or California somewhere. And he was like, "Your signature guitar is sick. Like, can you give me a good price on it?" And Eddie was like, "Dude, fuck that. Like, I'll just give it to you."
Mm.
And Eddie was like, everybody gives me all my shit for free now. When I was like young and coming up and aspiring to be something, like I had no money, nobody gave me anything, no freebies. So like you can just have it. So I thought that was a cool story. Also, like obviously personal interest because it intersects two of my favorite musicians.
Mm.
Um definitely would say House of Pain's probably my least favorite. I like them all. Kind of like my kids, it's hard to pick a favorite.
All 9 of them.
Yeah. Bullshit. I would say Drop Dead Legs probably my favorite, but dude, Jump, just every time that intro hits,
Yeah.
I just get so jazzed up.
Same.
I mean, like I said, like that,
You know it's coming.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a great time.
and it still hits you every time. And I'll say if it's not Drop Dead Legs, I would say I'll Wait is like the underrated tune on the album.
Mhm. Mhm.
And and then Eddie's just doing his thing, of course. I think him on the synth, like, again, MVP. He's always going to be the MVP for this band. But there's some really cool harmonics stuff that he's doing in Top Jimmy. I like Top Jimmy. Inky, that podcast that you shared with us was shared with me with those other guys who talk about albums. As soon as they started to say negative things about Top Jimmy and Drop Dead Legs, I was kind of like, damn, these guys are dweebs.
We're coming for their lunch money.
What are they?
Yeah, we are.
I'm gonna wedge you if I ever see him. So the only other thing I really have to add that I haven't said so far, and this is kind of like my hot take, like you guys have talked about Hot for Teacher. I like the song. I would say though, I don't know if it's even in my top 10 favorite Van Halen songs.
I mean, I don't know if it is in mine either.
Um,
There's a lot of other
I
good
think that's
stuff.
pretty fair. Yeah.
They do have a lot of good songs.
I don't think it's
And
that.
of course,
bad.
like for you guys, maybe it'd be like top 5. I mean, I don't know how much you know by Van Halen, but I've done a lot of research. I've got 4 of their albums.
Dude, there's a lot of
a
good
lot of
stuff on
extra
Van
credit.
Halen 1 and Van Halen 2.
Yeah, Van Halen 1,
Yeah.
Van Halen 2, 1984,
Diver Down.
and Diver Down, which is cool too.
Yeah,
I
that's a
would
good one.
say I'm the biggest Van Halen person I know of our age group, except my one coworker has a Van Halen bumper sticker and a Van Halen tattoo.
Yeah,
That's
you
next
What do you,
level.
buddy?
That's next level.
Yeah,
should get a face tat. Face tat? Neck tat.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, like a neck tat right here.
Yeah.
I told him, I was like, dude, if you told me that on the phone screening, I wouldn't have brought you in for an interview. I would have just given you the job.
Oh man.
But yeah, I don't have anything else to add. I love it so much. I love Van Halen.
I know we're
Probably arguably one of my top 5 favorite bands. At
yeah.
least, I mean, in terms of how much I listened to them on Spotify last year, they were in there. So,
Um,
I'm
now that the
I'm gonna
album's
go
up on
S.
this, good for you, man. I like that. I just wanted to add
Yeah.
one more thing before we go into the
Yeah,
rating.
sorry.
Now that it's up in the screen, love the album cover so
So
much.
good.
When I see it when I'm shuffling through my albums and I see that, it's like one of the few that like jumps out and like, oh, I love that. It's just so awesome. It's just a kid
is really
smoking
cool.
cigarettes,
It's
man.
iconic.
Like
It's an
it
iconic
just-
cover.
the whole album's just like it's just the whole album you kind of feel up to no good a little bit, you know? Like it's a little like devilish and that album just
You're breaking the
personifies it so
rules.
well. You're breaking the rules. You're hot for teacher,
Yeah.
like all that shit. Like, dude, yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Reminds me of the Nirvana album cover with the baby on it.
Yeah.
But yes, I would say S.
And well, I knew that was coming.
Yeah, probably could have guessed.
Um,
How do you
I mean,
guys feel?
I'll go. So I saw when I was doing my research that this was the number 2 album at the time, behind Thriller, the king of pop, the literal king of pop.
Which
That's
Eddie
rough.
Van Halen
And-
featured on.
Yes, he did. Yeah, I did. Which is just crazy to think about, but I think this is also an S. Yeah.
agreed.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
how an
three.
S rating works is it's got to be like not a bad song on it and more. And I think this album definitely
Nice.
has more than
Nice
just every
to say.
song being good. It's definitely an iconic and forever remembered album. So I'm totally fine putting it in S.
It's got the S factor. It has it.
God damn right.
Love that. And we're running out of time here. I mean, Nikki, just send another link because I know you said you wanted to talk about some stuff like outside of this
I guess.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Only other thing I was going to say, and the reason why I started talking about time is because I know Jack had some objection to Rubber Soul in S. And I will say, as much as I like Rubber Soul, Van Halen, or 1984, we've all agreed is S tier. And obviously, they're 2 very different albums, but I don't have the same passion about Rubber Soul that I do 1984.
Me too.
I think that's a great
Yeah.
place to leave off. I'll send another link. I'll see you guys in a second.
Yeah, so let's talk about
Oh shit.
whether or not we're bumping Rubber Soul down. I'm hoping Jack can give us his input because he was probably the biggest proponent of moving it down. I kind of forget the conversation we had. I mean, it was week 3 or 4, but like, it's funny because we were all speaking very highly of the album, but with Van Halen going up to S and how Jack feels and everything, like, what do you guys think?
I mean, I thought it was an A from the start. I thought Rubber Soul's a good album, but it's not an S. So I would definitely put 1984 above it.
Think yes or right?
I think Seamus is the only one who vocalized it, but it sounds like we're all putting 1984 above Rubber Soul. Right?
I think so.
Okay. Well, for me then it's just how we want to define an S. Do you guys like how many albums are you putting in S total? Out of all the music out there, is it 10 to 20? Is it 50 to 100? Because if it's a 50 to 100 S tier, then I think it just goes in front of Rubber Soul and we leave it up there. But and maybe if it's 50 to 100 total albums that are an S tier, maybe there's an S plus, like one above it, or that's reserved for like the top 10.
Or
Something
you
like
could just divide in half the S category.
I mean,
Like,
I don't even know if you have to
horizontally.
do that because, like,
Yeah, and
I think S tier is probably not 10 albums or 20 albums. It's probably
Right.
well
Yeah,
over
I think
100.
it
If
could
you,
be plenty more.
yeah, I mean, because I don't think that like there's so many genres of music. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I would
yeah.
imagine each genre has at least one S tier. So you're gonna have a lot in there eventually. But just the idea of like kind of limiting ourselves in that way, I don't feel the point, because then you're just going to load up A tier and it's going to have less meaning. So I'd rather just S tier be elite, and then whatever's above that is up to individual interpretation, you know?
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a limited quantity sort of
Yeah.
thing. It's not like you've only got so many liquor licenses to go around. You know what I mean? It's like anybody can get one if they're good enough, which is how it should be. God damn it.
Yeah. At
Um,
drinking liquor.
yeah.
Gotta be real good at drinking liquor.
Yeah.
Cheers.
So it's really just a matter of, is Rubber Soul a non-elite album? Because I think it's pretty elite.
Yeah, I mean, when you phrase it like
I think
that,
it's an S tier
it's a
album.
bit harsh, but
Like
I think there-
it seems like there's such a gap between them in your mind that it needs to be bumped down. But I still think that's like a pound for
Exactly what I was
pound
thinking. Yeah.
good song album straight through, an important album in the Beatles discography, like a huge inflection point for them.
So what gets you from high A tier to low S tier? I think that's kind of what we're navigating right now. What is
Yeah.
the line, the hallmark difference, you know?
for me, I would say that it's an album of the highest interest, and interest can come from a couple different places. So obviously, it's all subjective to like how much you like the music. I think an S tier should be like, in most cases, it's going to be an album that is just banger after banger. Like, you like every song, and it's not just that it's palatable across the board, but it's not just that you like every song, but on top of that, some of those songs, a lot of those songs are elite. Now,
Elite.
if there's more elite songs, then maybe you have more room for one or two kind of, I don't want to say duds, but lesser interesting ones, which in this album would be, Girls Gone Bad and House of Pain. But those other six just do so much justice for the album. Plus, those two aren't bad songs to begin with. So
No.
with Rubber Soul, I mean, I could keep it an S or I could go down an A. If we bumped it down to A, then American Beauty is going down to B, which I think is probably inevitably going to happen, honestly. Because American Beauty is cool, but like we said last week or the week before, like I gave it too much credit, I think, just because I never listened to it. I just thought about it for all the music as it's performed live, but we were talking about the studio version. So um, I say it's either Rubber Soul down, American Beauty down, or keep it an S. I'm fine with either. That's why Jack would have been the biggest proponent to knock this down. And he does vote that yes, we should bump it down. He just responded. Nigel says high A. I know Dan, you're leaning towards S. Inky, do you have a tiebreaker?
I'm leaning towards S. Maybe just recognize that there is a pretty sizable gap between these two
I'm
albums.
fine with that. I'm fine with that. Yeah. I still think it could get bumped down and American Beauty gets bumped down.
So
But
I have a question. Just in general, like how many Beatles albums do you think are better than this one?
great question. That's a
Because
great
like
question.
if this is, I mean, this is Rubber Soul's a great album, but are we gonna put half of the Beatles discography in S tier? I mean, they're great bands,
Could.
but
You could. Again, I don't think there's a limit. Like
yeah.
Zeppelin definitely has multiple S's. I was thinking that today.
Yeah.
And I would put Van Halen one in S. We'll eventually we'll talk about that one, I'm sure.
For me, it's just White Album and Rubber Soul and S. I think the rest would be mostly A. Maybe a few.
Interesting. White Album's an interesting shout.
I think just, and I said the same thing for American Beauty, just the legacy factor, how legendary of an album it was, how much coverage it got, how it influenced music.
I don't care about I mean, I care about influencing music, but like how much coverage it got, I don't think that makes an album.
I guess,
better.
yeah.
False, because you just talked about the top 100s.
No. Okay. That I see what you're getting at, but that's because if you're competing with Michael Jackson for the best album at the time, you're doing something right. That was the point.
And I
I
don't
gotcha.
think coverage was really the right word. It's more so legacy. You know, everyone just kind of generally accepts that the White Album is incredible and it's, you know, revolutionary, generation defining. Shall I continue? Dan,
I have to, dude. I got to re-listen to the White Album.
I feel like he's in my camp.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have picked the same Beatles albums for my S tier.
Oh,
I'd pick
shit.
Abbey Road.
You're on an island, pal.
No,
All right, we'll just cut that out.
but that's a fair enough question. Do we limit a band to one S tier album? There's the best of the best.
No,
I
Is
would-
that when
I wouldn't
another
say
album
that.
comes up, you have to pick?
no.
No,
But to
I wouldn't
Nigel's
say
point,
that.
it's this might fall on deaf ears, but it's kind of like how Jokic could potentially end up with a third NBA MVP, and it's just like every year you're like, well, he's got a case. Probably shouldn't have wanted maybe couldn't have wanted the first two, and if he ended up with 2 or 3 straight MVPs, you're just kind of like, is that really symbolic of a player? Is that kind of your point with Rubber Soul? It's like if they end up with 5 S tiers, it's like, I mean, you could argue the Beatles are that influential and amazing, but
Mhm.
I don't know. I think how Inky made it is ideal. At least for now, we can bump it down, but I'm not sold. I have not heard enough arguments for this case to be made.
The group speaks, Nigel and Jack.
What, to
Yeah.
move it down?
No, to keep it. It's 3v2. Me, Seamus,
Yeah,
and
haven't been bumped down from we haven't reached beyond a reasonable doubt yet. So I would say it's staying up there for now.
we
People's
tried.
court.
It's funny. I would say I do want to answer that question real quick though, because I would say I'm honestly, I said this, like, kind of really getting into Revolver right now. And I like Sergeant Pepper a lot. It's tough. Like, but the thing is, and this is one of the reasons why I was willing to bump Rubber Soul down. If I'm calling it an S tier, like, I almost feel like that's a lie because I do not listen to it that often. Like, the Beatles just aren't really in my wheelhouse of what I listen to. Like 80% of the time, I listen to classic rock. By 80, I mean like 97% of the time.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think albums can be up there that you don't listen to all the time, right? Because albums have their place in when you listen to them, why you listen to them, whether it's your style. But I guess my biggest thing for Rubber Soul is, like, I would say half of the songs are great and the other half are like decent, you know. And I mean, at least for 1984, it's like of the 9 songs, 7 are great or beyond great, and then 2 are good, which is a completely different ratio, I guess.
Yeah. I'm gonna say we keep it an S for now, but I think as we add more S's to it, it'll probably
Damn it.
You can tell Jackie tried for him, at least.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what the next album we do is that, like, comes close to that spot that 1984 is. Ultimately, I'm just so pumped up that no one skewered this album. I didn't really expect it, but I probably would have lost sleep tonight if this conversation didn't if there wasn't this much positivity around this album.
Yeah, I thought about coming in hot, but it would have been a lie.
Cool. We've definitely got some good episode idea concepts lined up with I think Mad Villain's going to be another interesting change of. We should probably always snap it around a little bit between, like, try to listen to a fresh album, you know.
Should we each, like, pick an album each week, maybe? Like, do a rotation?
I'm going to hold off on that for now because I think we want to make sure that there's just so many good ones to talk about. I really feel like we should make sure that we're always landing on an interesting one. And, like, I don't want to just toss up, like, an album that I like a lot. Like Rush's, like, third best album. and it just like is a conversation that no one can relate to. I feel like we might get to that point on episode 97, but
Mhm.
I think like Mad Villain's a good shout. I think we're due for another like another high, SA type of album. And again, I just say that because it's like there's just so much out. There's so much good stuff out there. Let's listen to it instead of just like, wasting our time on albums that aren't as amazing. We can get to them eventually.
Fair.
I also like the concept of having an episode just about or we can tack it on to the end of the Zeppelin one. I like that idea from Jack too. But the Mount Rushmore idea is something that I'm probably going to be thinking about a lot as I listen to music this week.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I would be tempted to
man.
add a fifth head on Mount Rushmore so that you can incorporate like a wild card. Not like you still love them, like they're still your fifth favorite musician, but because I just think when I create this, I'm gonna probably do it by like instruments so heavy and just create a
Yeah.
band that way. You know what I mean?
Kanye, a wild card.
Awesome.
He's
Someone's
the
really out
producer
there.
of this Rushmore. Producer Kanye, not rapper Kanye. That particular-
Yeah. The Kanye that doesn't talk at all.
Yeah, Kanye the producer is on my Mount Rushmore.
That's funny.
That'll be a fun one though. That I'll be thinking about that a lot. But yeah, I say keep Rubber Soul where it is. I still think it'll eventually get bumped down. Still think American Beauty should be bumped down too. But the more we fill this thing up, the more logical it all becomes. So
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
I got nothing else to add. Sick album. I just would like as soon as we do Van Halen one, the better. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Or
Right,
another album
1984 is on
of
my
this.
radar.
Yeah, or another album of this level of energy because I just am so about listening to it and talking about it.
Def Leppard.
Yeah.
Get some glam rock going.
We could start dressing up for these.
James did.
One person. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
I'm just missing like a wig and like some eyeliner, some guy liner. To really
maybe
be
a glittery
symbolic.
headband.
One of us can do that, or we could all just be the different members of Kiss.
Oh,
Do
God.
face paint? Oh, God. No, thanks, dude.
Well, we got
But yeah.
Mad Villainy coming up. You guys could do blackface.
I'll just wear the mask.
Saving it's just a mask.
Probably a better idea.
Yeah, I think HR might have a word with you after this podcast.
If you guys don't see me
yeah.
again, it's the man holding me out.
Yeah, I got nothing else to add though.
Same. Yeah.